Hi everyone, it's Keren here from tuppencecoloured.co.uk. Thank you for joining me. Today's project is this sweet little Christmas card. If you have to make a lot of Christmas cards, then it's practically never too early to start. So if you stick with me, we'll get going. For this card, I've used this stamp set, which is the Wondrous Wreath. It was introduced in the autumn-winter catalogue last year, and it's been carried forward now into the annual catalogue, which I'm really pleased about because this was actually one of my very, very favourite stamps. And it was one of the first Stampin' Up stamp sets that I actually bought. I liked it that much. So I've gone ahead and I've stamped the wreath image. It's a three-part stamp. So I've gone ahead and I've stamped this image onto Lost Lagoon cardstock, and I used Whisper White ink. And what I actually did was I used my Stamp-A-Jig and I stamped it twice in the Whisper White, because when I just stamped it once, which I did in the sample you saw at the beginning, it was just a little bit too pale for me. It wasn't quite, it didn't stand out quite enough. So I tried stamping it once, leaving it for a bit, and then coming back and stamping it again, and that's the image I got. I also tried, in the interest of science, I also tried stamping it on gesso onto the card, and that gave more of a I don't know, worn, antique-y look, which is still quite pretty. So I'm going to use that one in another card that I make, but for my sample today I'm going to use the Whisper White one. Now, the way you would normally stamp this is that you would stamp the main wreath first, then you would overstamp with the accent leaves, and then you would finish up with the berries, and then you would maybe put the the sentiment over the top. But I'm not going to do it that way because what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to emboss the accent leaves. So anything that I want to anything that I actually want to stamp on the card really needs to be underneath that, because otherwise it doesn't stamp so well over the top of the embossing. So here's my sentiment, Happy Wonderful Christmas, and I've inked it up in Memento ink. And I'm also going to bring in Old Faithful, which is my very tatty, much loved stamping mat. You need something, because these are photopolymers, you need something underneath them to get a crisp image. If you haven't got one of these, you can use a pad of paper, just something so it's got something to squish into. So I'm lining it up, and I'm going to press down when I'm happy with it. Okay, so there's my sentiment. Just put that on one side, use it later. I used Memento ink. Did I say that? I can't remember. Right, now I'm going to come in with the berries. Now each of these stamps has got a little nubbin, for want of a better word, at the top, which helps you see which way up you're holding the stamp. With the berries it doesn't really matter quite so much, and I'm using cherry cobbler. So again, with these, just want to get it vaguely on top of the wreath, because you don't want cherries going off all over the shop. And there they are. Okay, so I'm going to close that up, because otherwise I will put my thumb in it and it will not be pretty. Although this is a photopolymer stamp set, and you can see right the way through to where you're stamping, because I'm going to be using a Versamark ink, it's quite difficult to see where you actually do line up on the card. So what I've done is I brought in my Stamp-A-Jig, and I've gone ahead and I've stamped the accent leaves onto the imaging sheet, and now I'm just going to try and line those up with the underlying sheet. And as you can see, I didn't get it very straight when I did my first stamping. So if I was trying to line that up just using the numbers, I would be in big trouble. So I'm now holding the card down. Whoops, slipped. Don't want to do that. The more time you take over this, the better the result you'll get. So now I've got the handle of my Stamp-A-Jig, and I can take my imaging sheet away. And now I can come in with my accent leaves and my Versamark ink pad. So I'm going to ink that up, and I'm going to come in and down. Just press that down and make sure that I've got everything done. Oops, and what I should have done, and it's too late now, I should have gone over that with my embossing buddy. So let's hope that there isn't too much static on this card. Okay, so now I'm going in with my iridescent ice embossing powder. And as you can see, can we get that to catch the light a bit for you? Yeah, we can see we've got the embossing powder. So I'm going to go away and I'm going to heat emboss that, and I'll be right back. And I'm back. I hope you can see that there's little spots of glitter, and I did go over the lines a bit in a couple of places, but you know what? It all adds to the charm. I think it does anyway. So all we need to do now is to finish this card off. Now I've cut a square of cherry cobbler card, 3 3/4 of an inch square, and as you can see, I've already been at it. This stamp set comes with a companion set of framelits dies, and I've used the one for the bow, and I'm going to use that on my wreath, and put it in here. And on the original specimen, I just cut it out of the card, but this time I thought I'd try stamping it and then cutting it out with a framelit. If you don't have the framelit, you could always fussy cut it. And I've got my the flower from my Bitty Accents set, and them in. Okay, so bit of snail, onto my card, and oops, let's try and center that. Pin that down, and now I've got my dimensionals. Not much left of these dimensionals, but it's the nice thing about dimensionals, of course, is that you can use every single scrap. So that's going to go at the top of the wreath. There we go. Isn't that pretty? Okay, I've glued on my little bitty blossoms, and I'm going to give them some bling. So these are our basic rhinestones, and I think I used, did I use the same size? No, on this one I used the smaller ones. On this, which was that size, on these ones I'm going to use this one, because and that's just about it. Now again, on the original I put a candy dot in the middle of the bow there, but because I've already stamped it, I don't actually think it needs any more. I think that's sort of it for it. So all that remains now is to mount it onto the front of a card. So I've got a piece of card here, a 4x4 card, and my trusty snail, which works better the right way up. And we'll just center that one on the front of the card, and there we are. That's it. So there, and here they are. Here's the card that I made as my sample, and this is the card that we've just made together during this video. If you're going to make a whole lot of them for your Christmas cards, then what I recommend you do is that you do them in stages. So you stamp all of the wreath first, and then you come in and you stamp the sentiment and the berries, and then you finish up with the embossing, and then after that put your decoration on, assemble your card, and if you do it that way, then they'll probably come together quite quickly. I do hope you've enjoyed this project. Thank you for watching. You can find out more about the materials I've used and measurements and so forth on my blog, which is underneath the in the more about bar beneath the video. Hope you'll join me again soon. Goodbye now.